How basketball is probably more physical than you think. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategy.
Don't worry, I got it. Tell him to drop it off my way. Ain't no one closer than me. Who is disturbing the peace? Breaking their walls, making them fall. There's nobody better than me. I am a beast.
Today we're talking about how the sport of basketball is probably more physical than casual players think, or how casual fans probably think that basketball is. And when I say physical, what I mean is not only the physical sort of contact of basketball, but also the physical demands, how physically fatiguing and tiring it can be. Now, right up front, let me say, this is no comparison to any other American sport, right? There's no question that basketball is not nearly as physical as football or hockey or any kind of combat sport at all. I would never make that comparison. All I'm saying is that if you are a general fan and you just watch the NBA kind of casually and you don't really play, so you don't really understand, or maybe you're a newer player and so you haven't experienced it yet, and all you do is watch the NBA and you see the NBA players and you see, like, you know, Steph Curry standing out here and you see his defender 4 feet away from him and there's no contact, and you're like, oh, you know, basketball is a non-contact sport. There's no contact. Players never sort of wrestle with each other. They never, and because they're not physically touching and making contact with each other, it's much less physically demanding and fatiguing as other sports. That's very common as to what a casual fan may think of the game. And so this video is about trying to educate them that even though basketball isn't nearly as physical as other American sports, there is physicality involved that they may not be aware of, and thus they're not aware of all the contact that takes place and all the fatigue that goes along with that. So let's talk about how basketball can very well be more physically demanding and fatiguing than you may realize. While there are exceptions, the general rule of thumb is the farther you are away from the basket, the less physicality and contact you're going to have as a player. The closer you get to the basket, the more contact there is, because the closer you are to the basket, theoretically the easier it is to make a shot. So you play harder with more contact around the basket because you're trying to deny easier shots. The further you are away from the basket, the harder the shots are to make, the less contact there is. Now, there's really only two major forms of contact when you're talking about playing around the perimeter of a basketball court. One is when it comes to ball denial. So the ball's trying to be passed to you, or you're on defense and you're trying to keep the ball from being passed to the player you're defending, right? In order to do that, you're pretty much sealing that player off. You put your body against theirs so that there's no possible way they can catch the ball if it were be passed to them. So when we're talking about ball denial, that means you are making as much contact with the other player as possible, because they're either trying to make sure you can't catch it if you're on offense, or if you're on defense, you're trying to make it so that there's no path for a basketball to be passed to them. And usually that ball denial comes with a whole lot of physical contact, where you kind of have to sprint around and try to get open, and if your defender catches you, he's gonna be on you as close as possible, trying to have as little space for you to catch the ball. It doesn't sound like much when I describe it, though that's going to be sort of a running theme throughout this video. It's like, it doesn't sound like much when I describe it, but when you experience it yourself over and over and over again, it is much more physically demanding than you realize. Whether you're the defender trying to deny the ball, or you're the offensive player trying to get yourself open. There's a whole lot of contact, and it is physically draining. Really, the only other version of contact that happens continuously throughout being a perimeter player is when you run into screens, or you're the screen setter, meaning the ball handler and you're trying to get open. Something that happens continuously throughout the game is one of your teammates will come and set a screen for you, meaning you will move towards each other, and one of your teammates will then, at some point, he'll set his feet, he'll stand still, and he'll try to make a screen, like a fence, with his body by standing still. What's happening is, you are, as the ball handler, you are trying to run your defender into your teammate, so that when your defender runs into that teammate, he's no longer guarding you, and now you are theoretically open. That's the contact that I'm talking about. That defender running into that screen. Now, most of the time, that contact is minimal because the defender will see that the screen is coming, so he'll try to get around it by going over or under that screen. However, because screening is so common and it happens so many times, even on one given offensive possession, right, you're constantly fighting over and around those screens. So therefore, as a defender, you're constantly running into screens, you're constantly having to deal with them, how to get around them, and sometimes if you're the defender and you get caught off guard by surprise by a screen, it can be very jarring, especially if that screener is a smart, skilled, a big, huge guy. It doesn't even have to be a big guy, but especially if he's skilled and studied at how to set screens effectively, he's going to set a screen over and over again, so you're constantly running into him. And or he's going to set a screen so that you don't see it coming, so that you're still moving at a fairly high speed, rate of speed when you hit that screen, and it's going to be jarring. But more so than anything, the most common form of screen is just like it just happens over and over and over again, and you have to deal with going under, going over, trying to fight through and around the screen over and over and over again. It happening once or twice isn't really that big of a deal in terms of physical demand, but it can happen over and over and over again on a given offensive possession, let alone throughout the entire game. If you're a perimeter defender, you could be dealing with screens over and over and over again throughout the entirety of a game, and doing so once or twice here and there on a possession isn't all that physically demanding. Throughout the entirety of the game, though, it can, not only is it physically fatiguing, but it can be frustrating as well, especially if you have smart screen setters who are constantly making you fight and adjust. It can be frustrating to deal with that, not only physically demanding, but also mentally taxing. So, okay, playing around the perimeter, not that much contact, right? It comes and it goes. It can be kind of annoying, but it's not all that physically demanding or draining. It can be if it happens over and over again, but it's not too bad. So now let's talk about getting more towards the basket, where the actual real physical contact, the real physical demand usually takes place. Now we get to the big boys around the basket fighting hard for position. This is where the real basketball contact really comes into play. And it takes place in two major forms. The first is dealing with the post. For those of you who may not be familiar, like I said, the closer you get to the basket, the easier it is to score. So offensive players are going to try to get as close to the basket as possible. Problem is, they have a defender on them trying to keep them from the basket, who realize that the closer they get, the easier it is for them to score. So now you have the contact. What happens is the offensive player will try to post up the defensive player. Posting up means instead of that offensive player, whether they have the ball or not, instead of them facing the basket and trying to get as close to the basket as they can, that offensive player will turn their back to the defender and to the basket, because in order to get close to the basket, you're not allowed to put your hands on your defender and like push him out of your way or push him towards the basket. This is not sumo wrestling. You can't just push your defender out of your way. That's a foul. But what is legal and what you're allowed to do and can do and does happen is you can post up by putting your back towards the basket, putting your back towards that defender, and then leaning on them and trying to back your way down as close to the basket as possible. Simultaneously, that defender is trying to use their hand or their forearm or their body, their chest, against that offensive player to keep them, push them away from the basket as much as they possibly can. Now, they're not allowed to push with their hands, that's a foul, but they are allowed to put their hand out and try to keep them away from the basket. They're allowed to put their forearm out, they're allowed to touch their chest, their body to that defender's back, trying to keep them from getting closer to the basket. The defensive player is pretty much trying to keep that offensive player as far away from the basket as they possibly can. And thus, you have the physical contact, thus you have what I kind of consider wrestling, right? You have the two opposing forces pressing and pushing against each other for position. Now, it's not like this happens the entirety of the game. It's not like, oh, they just go stand by the basket and the entire game they're just pushing on each other. No, it's just something that happens for, a few seconds here and there, but it's not just here and there. It happens continuously, play after play, throughout the entirety of the game. Playing that way, playing that position, posting up, defending against it over and over and over again is because of the physical contact and the pushing and the wrestling. That's why it's physically demanding. In terms of sports, regardless of what sport it is, there's nothing more fatiguing than opposing forces wrestling and pushing against each other. It's just that in basketball, it's not like in football where you're constantly play after play, if you're a lineman, pushing and pulling against other players. In basketball, it just happens, for a few seconds here and there, but it happens again and again and again throughout the entirety of a game. So it's not like it's super fatiguing for that one play, but because it happens tens of dozens of times throughout a game, by the end of the game, yeah, you're physically spent if you've done it right. And it's just as fatiguing on defense as it is on offense. Again, it doesn't sound like much when I just sort of describe it, but when you experience it over and over again and you're constantly fighting and wrestling, the fatigue is real. The other major way that contact takes place down around the basket is when it comes to rebounding. The thing about rebounding is not only is it physically demanding because of the physical contact, but it's also physically demanding because of the sort of surprise urgency factor of it. What I mean is, whether you're in offense or defense, if you're doing whatever, physical activity you're doing on the court, which means you're probably either running as hard as you can, or you're moving laterally as hard as you can, or you just were jumping as hard and as fast and as high as you possibly could, but then suddenly a shot goes up, especially in the context of maybe you didn't expect a shot to go up. What happens is, when the ball is in the air, every single person, every player on the court is then responsible for getting to position on the court where that rebound is going to go. So you have to sprint to where, on the spot on the court where you think the ball is going to go, and then you have to dominate that spot, seal box out that spot on the court, because everybody else is going to try to get to that same spot, because they all anticipate the ball is going to come to that spot. So now you have to fight everybody. You have to box out everybody trying to get to that spot. And then when the ball comes to you, you have to try to be the fastest, highest, and most powerful jumper to go up and get the rebound. And you have to do this within, a split second of that shot going up. You have to sprint, box out, and jump. And you have to do all of that in a second, as hard and as strongly as you possibly can. Again, doing it one time here and there, not a big deal. You can recover just fine from that. But doing it over and over and over again throughout the entirety of a game accumulates in major fatigue. And also, something else to keep in mind about the contact of basketball is, there is no secret that basketball is not known to be a physical sport. It's not meant to be, right? I always say on this channel, basketball is the most athletic American sport there is. But athletic usually means agile, right? It means agility, it means quickness, it means speed. Athletic does not really coincide with power, with strength, with wrestling. That's not really considered to be athletic. Yes, wrestlers are athletes. There's no doubt about that. No shade at all against people who wrestle or do MMA or any kind of combat, whatever. There's no disrespect there at all. I'm just saying that, usually when you think of athletes, the stereotypical idea of an athlete is someone who is explosively fast and quick and agile. And in that realm, in terms of American sports, just basketball is the best. It's the supreme version of that. And so, no, we're not known for a lot of contact, a lot of wrestling. But my point is, when contact and wrestling and, pushing and trying to get position against another person who's pushing against you, when that situation does occur on the basketball court because we're not used to it, because it's not a mainstay of our sport. When it does happen, it's that much more impactful because we're sort of used to just sort of being open and not getting contact. We're used to the running and the jumping part. We're not really used to the pushing and the pulling and really fighting for position part. Even though it is, you know, a mainstay of our sport, most players would rather not have the contact and just rely on their athleticism and their agility to be successful at the sport, and kind of avoid the physicality of it because we're not used to it, because that's not what our sport is known for. So when we do get into positions, especially us guards, I'm a pass first point guard, when us guards find ourselves in positions where we have to fight for rebounds, or we're posting up, or we're defending in the post, that, because we're not used to it, right, is not a mainstay of our game. When we find ourselves in that position, is that it feels and it seems that much more difficult. There of course are players who are most comfortable in those positions. They are most comfortable with the contact, with the fighting, with the wrestling, with the fighting for position. But it's very rare that you get an all-around physical player who loves it all, who can do it all, who is very effective at it all, and you know, it doesn't really have a weakness in one side or the other. Either you're really athletic and really agile, or you're really big and powerful, and that's your style of play. It's not usually all in one. The exception being like a LeBron James, who can do all of it, right? That's not most of us. It's really only just him who's supreme at it. That should be proof enough that basketball is mostly athletic and agile, but when it comes to the physical contact side of it, that, because we're not used to that, because it's not, you know, a pillar of basketball physicality, when it happens, it's that much more impactful and fatiguing. So that's how basketball can be more physical and physically demanding than you probably realize. Again, no comparison to football or hockey or any kind of combat sport, never that. This video is just to say that for the people who sometimes think like, oh, it's just basketball, right? There's no contact. How difficult could it be? How physically, you know, demanding and fatiguing could it possibly be? It's just basketball. They just shoot and run. There's no really contact in that sport. How bad could it be? For those people, this video is just to say there are aspects of our game that are surprisingly more physical than you probably would realize. It doesn't happen often. It doesn't, you know, it's not like you're constantly fighting and wrestling with and against another person, but when it does happen, it does become that much more impactful and that much more fatiguing. For instance, I, as a basketball guard, would never want to be a football lineman because I would get destroyed. But also, that football lineman would never want to get out here on the court and have to laterally move against me and try to defend me, because I would burn him every time. I'm probably way faster, way more quick than he is, right? The comparison is not really fair to make. This video is only to highlight that, yes, sometimes there is physical contact in basketball, and when it does happen, it is physically demanding. When there is physical contact, we don't brush it off, right? It's not like, oh, don't touch me, I don't want to, you know, I don't want that contact, I don't want any of that smoke. It's more like, when you find yourself in the post, you're playing as hard as you can. You're pushing and posting and fighting and wrestling. You're doing that as hard as you can. It may be only for a few seconds, but it's for a few seconds over and over and over again. And you're doing it absolutely as hard as you can in the midst of trying to do it. Same thing with rebounding. Rebounding is constantly sprinting, boxing out, jumping over and over and over again. And yes, the aerobic, the cardiovascular aspects of basketball, the running and the jumping, not all that demanding, right? It's usually, as long as you get in shape, you are in shape, you can deal with the running and jumping pretty easily. But when you combine that with the physical contact that you get over and over and over again throughout the process of a game, that's when the fatigue comes into play. There's nothing more fatiguing than physical contact, especially when you are constantly going from, you know, the cardio aspect, the running and jumping, to the wrestling and back and forth and back and forth. doing that over and over again throughout a game, that's the physical fatigue that builds up throughout a game. It's going from one to the other over and over again, not to mention then having to play defense and moving laterally as fast and quickly as you possibly can throughout the entirety of a game, which every player on the court has to do, because unlike in, say, football, every player that plays any position on a basketball court at some point has to do everything that everyone else does. Like a quarterback doesn't block, he doesn't jump, he doesn't have to move laterally all the time. In football, certain positions only usually do certain physical things. They only have certain physical responsibilities. On the basketball court, everybody does everything at some point, and they do it over and over and over again. Because of that, there is more physicality than you realize, and there is more physical fatigue than you realize. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it informative for people who may not know, understand, be aware of how physical a basketball game can be, then please subscribe to the channel. And let us know down in the comments what you think. Is basketball actually that physically demanding and fatiguing? Do you agree? Am I taking it too far? You know, are you a football guy who is like, what are you talking about? Football is way more physically, you know, combative and fatiguing than basketball in terms of the contact. There's no question about that, but what do you guys think? But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because not only does hitting that thanks button highlight all of your comments, making them stand out from all the other comments, but hitting that thanks button also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment, like I said, make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, I'll see you guys next week.
Wow, they really thought they could beat me. Now, they look away when they see me, but I'm on TV, so it's kinda hard. Beast mode, I'ma lead the charge. Beast mode, this is just a start. Beast mode, keep going